What's up everyone, Taiki here, and today I want to give an update to my Maker thesis. If you like the content, please like and subscribe and check out the premium Discord. I post 3 videos every single week and I share my portfolio in real time. So if you've been following me, you know that I've been really gung-ho on this Maker thesis for the past 3.5 months, so much so that I have this, on-chain leverage position where, on Aave, I have Maker as collateral, I borrow USDC, and I buy more Maker and I collateralize it. So I've been doing this on more than one wallet, so this is just one of them, but on this wallet I borrowed 660k USDC and bought more Maker. And then I think I've paid like 5k in interest or so. So on one hand, you can argue that this is just pure degeneracy. I just call it trading with conviction. So for transparency, my cost basis is roughly $13.74. It was lower last month, but I ended up buying more recently before the Coinbase IPO. And I'm roughly like 1.95x long, meaning that hypothetically, if I had like $100,000, I would buy 100k of Maker, borrow 95k, and then bought back 95k of Maker. So that's effectively my position. And fortunately, the trade has gone in my favor so far, so hopefully that continues. But I mean, hope is not a strategy. Let me talk about why I think it's going to continue doing well. So the bull case for Maker and Sky, Maker rebranded to Sky, so they're the same thing. There's 3 parts. So first is Circle IPO, second is the Sky staking, and the Spark launch, which just happened, or which just got announced. So let's first talk about the Circle IPO. So on Twitter, I put out this article a few days before the IPO. The IPO happened last week, where I made an argument that the Circle IPO is going to pump DeFi tokens. Pretty simple thesis where I think the market is undervaluing Circle at $7 billion valuation, and I expected it to surpass 10 bill. What I didn't expect is for Circle to hit what is now like a 23 bill valuation, which is optimistic, let's say. And I thought buying Circle at 7 or 10 is fine. At 23, I can't really justify its valuation, but Circle, they are the real deal. I understand that some crypto natives don't like their business model, and it's not perfect, but I do think that Circle equity is a good vehicle, right? In the sense that you don't have to bet on the future of, or if you want to bet on the future of blockchain technology getting adopted, you don't have to bet on Ethereum or Solana or L2s or new blockchain, right? If blockchain is being used in the future, then USDC is going to be a huge part of it, and they can just like print money in perpetuity as long as rates are above 0, right? Which I think it's going to be. I don't want this to be like a Circle shill, but I just thought Circle IPO would do well, and I think for DeFi coins like Maker or other coins to do well, I do think that Circle had to pump, right? Because I think, for me, the people I follow, people I talk to, they were saying that, yeah, like Circle is overvalued at 7 billion, it might trade at 5 billion, right? But let's say they were right. If Circle traded at 5 bill, then you can't really justify the valuations for any DeFi tokens right now, right? Like Athena is like 5 bill FDV, Maker is like almost a 2 billion FDV. If Circle is only worth 5, then I probably would have sold out of Maker. But if Circle's traded at 10, that's fine. But right now it's trading at 23, right? And if you really think about it, Circle and Maker, they're pretty similar businesses. They just issued a stablecoin, and they get to make money on the backing. And then Maker also has like the money market element. But let's keep going. Circle made $157 million in net income in 2024, and it's at 23 bill. Maker right now, it makes roughly 107 million in profits, and it's trading sub 2 billion, right? So is that fair? Is that cheap? I'm not sure, right? I think it's like relatively cheap, right? The thing is, like, there's no way for me to know what the fair market value of Maker is. However, if Circle is a comparable business to Maker and it's trading at like 12x multiple or like an 11x premium over Maker, then I think the market can eventually justify a higher valuation for Maker, right? And you can say the same for other DeFi tokens. If Circle is worth 23, then Aave looks good at like 5 or 6 bill, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, when I say DeFi summer, right, I don't mean that any token can pump, right? You can't just buy some random DeFi governance token from 2020 and expect for it to like 3x. You have to bid quality. So I mentioned, some tokens I like. I like Maker, I like Aave, Syrup, Pendle, and of course, it's like if these tokens do well, then spot dexes, perp dexes, right, could benefit. For example, like Hyperliquid can do well, right, if on-chain assets are performing well. And so far, that thesis, right, or the Circle IPO thesis, seems to be playing out, right? Maker has been trading fairly well. Hyperliquid has outperformed a lot of other things. Aave has done well. Pendle's been kind of disappointing, but I still like it. Of course, I liked Circle sub 10, but not anymore. And Syrup, this thing is crazy. I kind of mid-curve this one, but I'll talk about more about Syrup later. So I think the Circle IPO, right? It kind of indicates a lot of appetite by TradFi or institutions for like profitable businesses on chain, and if Circle is worth 23 or like, let's say above 20 billion, then I think it could re-rate other DeFi tokens much higher. And I think we are just seeing that right now. We are in the process of that re-rating, and I expect it to continue. So like I said, you can buy a basket of these coins or just concentrate on one. My preferred style is to just build really strong conviction on, like 1 or 2 or 3 coins, and just bet big and just like watch that basket like very, very closely. So that's kind of where I'm at. So next, let's talk about Sky staking. When I first came up with my Maker thesis in February, Maker was a token that took all its profits and then bought back the token. So at the time, they were buying like roughly $500,000 of its token every single day. Now, with the introduction of Sky staking, there's a slight modification. So now 50% of the profits are going into buying back the token, and then 50% is going to Sky stakers in the form of a dividend. So this got introduced on Monday. So June 2nd or June 3rd, or like a Monday of last week. And interestingly, right, it was introduced June 2nd, yeah, and then it just started pumping, right? And it's this is always like a question that I've had, right? It's like, if a protocol is making a lot of money, is it better to buy back the token or to distribute it to stakers? Because if you think about it, like, it shouldn't really matter, right? Like, at the end of the day, like $500,000 is going into token holders in the form of a buyback or a dividend. It shouldn't really matter. But I find it interesting that, it literally like pumped, right? Once staking was introduced. I don't know like what the right answer is. Maybe if you have an opinion, let me know. I'm still trying to figure it out. Maybe like one idea is that maybe people in crypto, they don't really pay attention. So if a protocol is just like buying back a bunch of tokens every single day, it's kind of hard to like visualize or conceptualize how much that is. But if they see like a staking yield, so right now, right, you can stake Sky and then you get paid 13.67%, right? And this is just half the profits going into the token. It's like, wow, like maybe there are certain subsets of buyers that say, wow, like I didn't know they made that much money, right? And they need to see like an actual APY for them to ape the token, right? But then again, right? That kind of goes against like the efficient market hypothesis, right? Because it's like, I've been talking about this Sky staking for like months, right? It's like, do people really need to see it before they ape it? I have no idea. Another argument is, perhaps if you do like a staking, right, incentivization, you can maybe the rally will be more spot driven because people will buy spot, right, buy Sky and stake it for the yield, and then instead of like people trading on perps, it also incentivizes people to do the basis trade, where you can hypothetically, you can like long $500,000 worth of Sky, stake it, earn this, then short $500,000 worth of Sky on perps, collect funding, right? And then you have like this delta neutral position, maybe earning like 15 to 20%. And like maybe like that's, that makes longing perps cheaper. And then, it's like a spot driven rally, etc. I don't really know what the answer is, but the thing is like, it's pump the token, right? And maybe I'm just fooled by randomness and then it just pumped because Circle did well. I have no idea. But the point is, Sky staking got introduced, and it's starting to do this whole migration, right? Because Maker rebranded to Sky. It's very confusing, right? Even myself, I've been making like these videos, and then every time I talk about it, like I use Maker and Sky interchangeably, and then you're probably confused, like, wait, is Maker the same as Sky? Yes, it's the same as Sky, right? Or yeah, see, I'm even more confused. But I mean, yeah, like, there's that staking. But another element of my thesis that I laid out yesterday, or sorry, not yesterday, last month, in my previous video, is as part of the token migration, any maker that isn't converted to Sky at a certain date is going to get burned. And my argument was that after doing some on-chain analysis, I think a conservative estimate is that 10% of the supply is going to be burned. So, using Dune Analytics, I made this dashboard. I mean, I can link it later, but for example, like, over so there's like 15,000 tokens that's been dormant, so sitting on chain in like random wallets for over 5 years. Chances are those are just lost tokens, right? Because Maker is one of the oldest ERC20s on the Ethereum blockchain nowadays, right? In the year 2025. I'm pretty sure, I mean, I hope everyone has a hardware wallet, but like 6 years ago, right? I'm pretty sure people were like just like YOLOing it, right? And it's more likely that people like lost private keys, lost them, or just like forgot about that these tokens exist, and eventually all these tokens are going to be burned. And if you take a valuable token and you burn, like, let's say 20% of the supply, then that should result, all things being equal, in a 25% increase in the token, right? And one case study I want to talk about is Syrup. So I mean, this token's been pumping, right? And the metrics have been up only. So, I mean, I guess it makes sense. But interestingly, on April 30th of this year, they did a token migration, right? Where the deadline was April 30th. So they said that if you don't convert your Maple tokens to Syrup by April 30th, we are going to burn your token. Like, we're going to take your money, essentially, right? Kind of aggressive. But hey, I like it. But if you look at April 30th, I mean, April 30th is like literally when it like pico bottomed here and it started pumping. I mean, like I said, it did coincide with the fundamentals of the project just like improving significantly. But I'm like, it's kind of interesting, right? It's like, did it pump? I mean, maybe there's like maybe like 80% of the pump was caused by fundamentals, and then 20% of the pump was caused by like a rebrand, right? Because once a token gets rebranded, it has to be listed on like Coinbase and Binance again, right? Maybe that brings more attention. Maybe like the token burn actually did like re-rate the token. Either way, I don't really know. But this happened April 30th, right? The deadline, and then 7.6% of the tokens did not migrate. And Maple is like it's still like a pretty old token, right? Like maybe 5 years or so. I forget the exact, but Maker is so much older, and I find it peculiar that, staking is live, right? So, I mean, if you hold Maker, like, you should be converting it to Sky and then like just staking it, right? Because otherwise you don't get this yield. So it's like, why aren't people doing it? Like, maybe my estimate of 10% was way too conservative. Maybe it's closer to 20%. 25%. Like I said, I don't really know the answer, but I've often used like this example of Aragon DAO, right? I talked about this in depth last month, but I'll quickly go over it. So it was like this dead project from 2018 that had like $160 million in the treasury, and then people demanded that like the team people redeemed the treasury, right? So like the token was trading at 80 million, people bought it at 80 mil, and then they got like $160 million worth of value, essentially. But in order for you to redeem, right, the treasury value, you had to migrate the token and then like do the whole transition process. But 27% of the supply did not migrate, which makes no sense, right? Like, if all these people, right, that held the token knew about this, and were alive, right, or had these tokens, they should have migrated, right? Because otherwise it goes to zero. So it kind of leads me to believe that, maybe the range of the tokens that will potentially be burned is 10 to 30% for Maker. Ideally, like, the more tokens that get burned, like, the better. I don't really know the answer to that, but, perhaps, or I just find it interesting that when the deadline to migrate was like April 30th, like, that's when it started pumping. Like I said, there's many factors, but the deadline to convert for Sky is September 18th. They're not going to be as aggressive, right? So they're not going to like rug anyone that doesn't migrate. It's just going to be like a gradual penalty. But perhaps, we can see a potential pump post September 18th, because if it's September 18th and then like 30% of supply did not migrate, then the market should start pricing in the fact that, hey, maybe 20% or 25% of the supply is going to be burned. So I find that interesting. And if you're enjoying this analysis, enjoying these videos, make sure to check out my premium Discord, the Humble Farmer Army. I post 3 videos every single week, and I share my portfolio in real time. Honestly, all I do is like bull post Maker and like bull post Farcoin here and there. But sometimes maybe I give out some good signals. For example, it's like Sky Staking goes live on June 2nd, Circle IPO on June 4th, buy Maker on the weekend, right? Which was pretty rational, and like it kind of made sense. And that's kind of when I added to my position. I was previously like 1.45x long, and then I increased my position by 25% on this little dip there that weekend. So there's that. And then last thing I want to talk about is the Spark launch. So it's really interesting, right? Because if you think back to if you think back to like my July 2023 videos, when I was first bull posting Maker, right? How young was I? Pretty young back then. But the reason I bought Maker here, right, was Buybacks started, and then Spark is launching soon, right? Which is basically the same reason I started like buying Maker down here, right? Buybacks starting again, and then Spark launching soon. The problem in 2023 was that the buybacks were bullish, and then like they were making a bunch of money, but then the token never launched, right? And they just like kept pushing it back, and then that kind of like led to the end of buybacks, and then the tokens like basically fully retraced like the pump. But right now, it's actually going to happen finally, right? So this morning, Spark just announced the Spark Ignition airdrop, and they posted the eligibility checker. So I highly encourage people check this. So if you used Sparkland or Aave or Morpho or Fluid or Pendle or Athena or Curve or Pendle, right? You might be eligible. So make sure to check. I think the token itself will be worth, I don't really know. I kind of had in my head like $500 million FTV. It's kind of pulling out of my ass. But first, let me talk about like why Spark is bullish for Maker, right? And then, or before I talk about that, let me explain like what Spark is. So Spark calls themselves like the on-chain capital allocator. So what they essentially do is, they are a spin-off, right? A spin-off from Maker or Sky. They are called like one of the sub DAOs, and they call it like a star. But because they have a relationship with Maker, they get to borrow stablecoins at a wholesale rate from Sky, and then they can deploy that stablecoin on chain. It's kind of like hypothetically, right? If Circle, right, took all the US if Circle took like dollar backing of their stablecoin, and then they started farming on chain on like Aave and like Athena or something, that's basically what it is, right? So it's kind of like this on-chain capital allocator. And if you go to info.sky.money, click on collateralization, and then click on Spark, you see that they've borrowed roughly $4.9 billion at a 4.09% APY. So this is an interest rate that they pay to Sky. And this goes into buybacks and whatnot. But Spark, right, they can just put this into Morpho, Athena, Centrifuge, like Maple, et cetera, and they're effectively getting a 4.81% rate. So their margins are fairly low, but it is like a profitable operation. And the reason it works like this is because if you're like the main DAO, like Sky, you don't want to deal with like allocating capital to like maximize yield on the backing. You kind of just want to focus on like the main points of like the DAO, and then Spark can specialize in allocating capital on chain, buying RWAs, etc. So one of the problems with like DAO governance is you kind of rely on one token to govern everything, which doesn't make sense. So Maker, as one of the oldest DAOs, essentially said, okay, like screw this, let's, instead of like one token to govern everything, let's create like 5 tokens, 10 tokens, 15 tokens that spins off right from the main DAO, that focus on like one main thing, and then like have that thing do really, really well. And because they are a spin-off from MakerDAO, they're all going to have tokens. And the only way to farm these tokens is by staking Sky or staking USDS. So essentially, right, this creates more utility for the governance token, and it creates more utility for the stablecoin. And if you think about the business model for Sky, right, whenever the stablecoin supply goes up, the DAO itself, they can take the backing and then farm on chain or buy T-bills. And if people are staking USDS to farm the Spark token, right, then that's like that's, like it's at a zero cost to the main DAO. So if this thing launches at a $500 million valuation, and it's giving away, as you can see here, like 16.3% of the supply to USDS stakers, that's like roughly $81.5 million worth of value that's gonna be added, right, to the ecosystem, and then perhaps that would add like $1 billion worth of additional market cap in the stablecoin supply, which can increase profits by like roughly $40 to $50 million. I this might be kind of going over your head. It's kind of hard to explain in like one single video, right? And this is like the reason I do like these monthly updates, right? It's just so that you know that I'm alive, and like, hey, I'm still keeping track of this stuff, guys. I'm still long, right? I even bought more. So yeah, that's basically how it goes. And then Spark is like the first DAO, right? The sub DAO that comes out of it, also called Stars. And then I attend every single Sky community call. It's a lot of work, but I have to watch my bags very closely. And my account is called Maker Midcurve, right? Because that is what I am. And I asked Rune, the founder of Sky, the question: how many stars do you think will launch farming this year? So Spark, right? Looks like they're about to launch like in a few weeks, maybe, right? And he also said in this AMA, he's looking to launch at least 5 stars this year. So what that means, like that's like 5 new tokens that you can only farm with staking Sky or staking USDS, right? Which would pump the metrics, which would pump the profitability. It would kind of pump everything, right? Like at least the metrics. And I think that would be like the catalyst that I'm waiting for, honestly, for Maker to actually fulfill its destiny and like put in like a strong move, essentially. So yeah, I argue like the fundamentals of Maker now is much better than like whatever it was like back then, right? Like peak hype or like March 2024. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I've round tripped so many gains previously, right, before. So I don't want to round trip again. But also like the fear of round tripping shouldn't really be the reason to sell, right? Like I have a thesis, it's playing out. Like why would I sell, right? I think so. This is like from this book called Best Loser Wins. And actually, let me actually go full screen here. And it kind of goes over like the main mistakes that people make in markets. And the author, right, for Best Loser Wins, it's a good book. Argues that the main cause for people's mistakes is because they want to avoid pain, right? Because hypothetically, for example, you buy a token and it goes down, right? They say, oh, I'm letting my loss run, right? Because of the Fibonacci thing says, like, the TA says so, right? But in reality, you're just like not cutting your losers because you don't want to admit that you got it wrong, right? And you want to get back to break even or something, which makes no sense, right? Like the markets don't care about your entry. And then, like number 4 is like, kind of like the emotions maybe. I'm feeling that right now. It's like, okay, like, do I sell because I'm up? But like also, right, it's like, that's kind of because I'm scared of like round tripping, right? And like I'm scared of, there's a lot of dopamine, right, that I experience just because I own so much of this thing. And there's like a lot of P&L or profit or loss that's associated with it. But if the thesis is like playing out, then like I should just fucking keep holding, right? Maybe it makes sense to buy more. But honestly, like, I bought so much recently, over the past few months that like I can't rationalize buying more, right? I think, being 2x long this token, like literally on chain, right? That's probably like past my risk parameters. Anyways, what was I talking about? Like there's gonna be like 5 more tokens, so that could be a narrative, right? It's like, okay, like there's a stablecoin bill coming, Circle IPO is good, DeFi is no longer illegal, right? Like it feels like last year Gary Gensler was telling all of us that buying crypto is illegal, like using DeFi is illegal, right? You're gonna go to jail. And now like the new SEC chair Paul Atkins is like, yeah, like people have the right to self-custody, and then stablecoins are good, which is like a crazy 180. And I think when you're living in the day-to-day, at least for me, it's kind of hard to feel like the effects of this, but maybe that's what's happening now. Because if you think about it, the top performers recently has been things like Maker, Hyperliquid, Aave, Syrup, right? Like even Circle, right? I mean, meme coins have done well, of course, but are we going back to a market that makes sense, right? Where like profitable tokens can start outperforming? I don't know, right? Like, I mean, I hope so. But then again, I've been saying this for like the past 2 years, and I've always been wrong. But like maybe the right answer is like a mix of both, right? Maybe we're in an environment where like, like the fundamentally strong coins start to go up, and then there's like some like meme coins that like pump really hard too, right? Which is like only natural. Either way, right? I'm trying to get the best of both worlds. I own Maker and Fartcoin. But yeah, that's kind of the summary of my Maker thesis. Hopefully that makes sense. Lastly, I do want to address my new channel. So I think recently I haven't really been making any videos. Like once a month I make like a Maker update, right? But that's just to keep myself accountable. And I also stopped making like the Crypto Market Wizards podcast. I actually recorded one podcast with like a guest, but we both agreed that the quality wasn't there, so we both agreed to like not upload it. And I know people like the podcast, so I want to make them, but also I don't want to make them just because people want me to make them, right? I only want to make them if like the guest excites me, and there's like not enough like potential guests that warrants like a weekly episode for, let's say. But also, right? I wanted so TLDR, I made a new channel. It's called Humble Farmer Taiki, and yeah, I'll link it in the description. But I want this channel to focus more on the storytelling side of crypto. So, for example, right, like if I make this video right around Vitalik's $40 billion bullish picture, it's probably not going to do well on the Taiki Maeda channel, right? Because people expect a certain type of content. But this is like a funny story that I wanted to tell, right? Because if you remember, right, it's like this bullish pick that like pumped Ethereum by like $40 billion, right? Anyways, right? Like these things I can't really talk about on this main channel, right? Or maybe it could be, maybe it makes no sense. And maybe, through like this video, right, I can edutain, right? Like, I can entertain people and also educate people. And then maybe I can bring more people into the space, and then that can be like a positive something, right? So, I've been working hard on this for like, I only started posting like the past 10 days, but I've been working on this for like over a month, right? So if you're interested, right, no pressure, feel free to check this out. Maybe it's more interesting, right, to some people. But yeah, to wrap things up, bullish DeFi, I think the Circle IPO is still being pretty underappreciated, right? I think the fact that it's trading above a $20 billion market cap is really, really good for coins like Maker or just like DeFi in general. But, I think you can't just buy anything, right? You have to buy fundamentally strong tokens. And there really isn't that much of them in crypto, honestly, which on one hand, it's kind of sad, but also maybe that's good, right? Because if there's only a few assets that's like investable in crypto, then maybe all the capital converges to like those few assets. And then maybe it's like easier to pick winners. Maybe I'm like being too hopeful. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the content. Let me know if you're bullish DeFi. I'm getting more bullish DeFi. Hopefully my thesis pans out, because if you watch like my February, March, April video, right? What I've been saying is that I want to be long Maker into the stablecoin bill, maybe the Circle IPO, and also the Spark launch. So now that Spark is looking like it's about to launch, I feel like this is, we should be starting to move. If it doesn't move, then maybe that's when I start to get concerned, right? Because if what I think is, or if I have a thesis about like, okay, this thing should be bullish, but it's not being reflected in the price, then that's kind of concerning, right? Like maybe we run out of like buyers or something. But even today, right? What's up today, right? Syrup, Maker, hyperliquid. Everything else is down, essentially, right? It seems like maybe the pendulum is shifting, right? We'll see. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Check out the Discord if you want. No problems if not. Check out the new channel. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the content. And I'll see you another time. Bye-bye.